Hello there. So, here we are. You're wondering, what the hell are you recording a video for right now? So, I've just seen Rise of Skywalker, literally a couple of hours ago. So, I didn't really have a structure plan for this. I actually asked a fellow YouTuber, just because he was quite excited he'd seen it yesterday, I just asked him to fire me over 3 questions, which I've got written down here on my answer. Well, my answer to one of them, the other two I'm going to have to feel my way through. So first question, I suppose you want to know, is did I like it? Um, and let's be honest here, this trilogy has had what can only be described as a bit of a troubled history. You know, the two directors of two films have been kind of moved aside. Like, you know, the guys from Solo and the guys which were going to direct this one. I can't remember. I think he did Jurassic World. Um, so they, yeah. So this, I think, one of the accusations I think is going to be fired at this it doesn't really, it didn't have a coherent thread, let's say, like the other two trilogies. Even though how much hate the prequels get, George Lucas kind of knew where it would end up, even though it did have that no moment, but still, So, first question, yes, I liked it. I actually quite enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to. I mean, I did like The Last Jedi, which I think will um, put me in a certain camp of Star Wars fans, because the hate for that film was really quite surprising to me. Um, and as you may expect, I am trying to avoid spoilers here, obviously. Um, but there was some obvious backing away from The Last Jedi. Very obvious, I would say. Um, but the film overall, there wasn't a section of it where I was bored or losing interest, or it was definitely, I mean, it wasn't like a massively fast paced film, if you know what I mean. It was like, it didn't, like, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. I mean, compared to things like Endgame in it, Chapter 2, it barreled along at a fair pace, but it wasn't massively speedy. Um, there were some nice touches in it. I mean, there was obviously a couple um, cameos and stuff. I mean, one guy who I won't mention, and my second he walked across the screen, I was like, well, his current price has just gone up by 20 quid. I think you may know who I'm talking about there, but it was like, oh, there was like some quite surprising cameos in it. The film's pretty, I mean, the acting was fairly good. One of the questions I will be answering in a minute is about that. Um, so that's actually get to these questions. So me and the YouTuber Life and Simon have been kind of talking back and forth over the last couple of months, and so I mentioned him in a YouTube video. So he tweeted yesterday he'd seen it and was really excited. So I tweeted him over, said, "Hi, I'm doing this video. Do you want me to answer any questions you might have?" So he sent me 3. So I'm gonna answer each one as best I can. So the first question he asked me was, how did you think Leia was handled? Now, let's be honest here. They had a bit of a problem. At the end of The Last Jedi, Leia was alive, but the actress playing her wasn't. So, what did they do? I'm trying not to spoil parts here, but I will say that her part is brief, and I mean, the CGI was fairly well done. I don't know what footage they used or where they got the footage from or how they did it, but it was pretty effective. I mean, if you didn't know Carrie Fisher wasn't around, you wouldn't really be able to tell. But if you knew, you could see that it was, her lines were brief. They were not like massive speeches. They were just very short and to the point. Which, I mean, I think they handled it well. They obviously had to do a couple of things so she's not in the whole film, which again I'm not going to spoil. Um, but I think overall, with the situation they had and the way that they had to do it, it was done pretty well. It wasn't like the end of Rogue One, which the actress pulled her head back and it was obviously a CG de aging thing, which I was like, ooh, it looked a bit off. So, you know, The next question he asked was, did the ending go the way you thought it would? Now, obviously, I am going to put the spoiler warning up here because I'm going to discuss a few things. Okay, so, did the ending go well? I, I honestly, going in, I think I knew that no matter what they did, they weren't going to please everyone. Let's be honest about this, you know. Um, did it end well? I mean, I think it did. I mean, I don't think the ending is like say as definitive as the ends of say the first trilogy and the original one, where it's like, yeah, evil is dead, blah. It kind of had that to it, but then I'll say it in the last scene. Um, Ray goes somewhere from the original trilogy. I'm not going to say what that is, but she goes there, and then someone says, "Who are you?" She says, "Ray." And then she turns around, sees two figures, and then says a name, turns around, two sons, BB-8, and that's it. So I don't. It got the feeling that they didn't. How can I say this without spoiling anything? The ending felt like, oh, we're gonna see Ray again. It's not definitively done. There's still. I mean, obviously, if you've seen the film, you'll know what happens in the ending, but it was like it felt more like a character introduction. If that sounds right. It was still good. It was still a good ending, but it was like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting her to say what she said, considering who her parents are. Which, I mean, the retconning of her parents was coming, and we all knew it was coming, and it wasn't a shock when it happened to me. I was like, yeah, fine, cool, kind of guessed. I didn't guess who they were or what kind of part they had to play, but it was like we knew because of what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi when, Kylo tells him his parents were nobodies, which a lot of people liked because it wasn't like she was like, as people always accused her of being a bit of a Mary Sue character, which I always disliked. If a character's good at shit, deal with it. It's fantasy. It's not supposed to be real. If a character's good at everything, deal with it. But the what I'm feeling is, yeah, it went well. I didn't expect the ending that it had, but I was happy with the one I got. Because again, I don't think there was any way they could have gone in and gone, right, let's please these guys, let's please these guys, and let's please these guys. Because they could not do that. There was no way they could bring back Palpatine, end it, and end it definitively in a way that pleased everyone, which I think is why the reaction to it has been so mixed. Because people, I think, were expecting, like, I mean, you could say some scenes were reminiscent from ones of Jedi, but I suppose if you're putting Palpatine in there, I think that's a comparison that is going to be made. Like J.J. Abrams' first film was people saying a retread of A New Hope. I mean, it was quite dark, Last Jedi, so you could have said Empire, but it wasn't the overriding arc of Empire, if you know what I mean. So his next question was top three performances. Now, what I've kind of cheated and I've put two people at three. So we're going to go 3, 2, 1. So number three, equal. We're going to start with Richard E. Grant, who's in this as a magnificently evil person from the First Order, and he is literally chewing scenery with an absolute glee, and it was kind of nice because there's been a lot of people who've turned up in this trilogy that you're like, oh, so they obviously may have turned up in Consular because they're in Star Wars, and Richard E. Grant was just deliciously evil. And the other third person was Adam Driver, who I actually think had a quite difficult job to do in this trilogy, because in the first one, Kylo Ren is basically evil, even though we know his lineage, you know, Leia and Han's son. You know, he kills Han Solo, so, you know. And then let's tell you a funny story. When we actually saw that first film, a friend of mine who I took with me, when Kylo Ren did what he did, he shouted out the word bastard really loudly in the cinema. So that kind of gives you an idea of the reaction that had. Then in The Last Jedi, he had another difficult job because there was this connection between him and Rey, which he actually had in the third film as well. It is still there. They still kind of, and there's this kind of really strange thing in it where, for some reason, and this is not really spoilery, but it's fairly early on in the film, he grabs at Rey, grabs a necklace, and pulls it off her, and he has it. So he's reaching across an entire galaxy, can, like, you know, touch her. So that is a quite strong bond, and I think he's also had to play a character who is evil beyond evil and also has a believable good side, because, you know, he is the son of Han and Leia, so that is in there, and I think he does an incredible job with it. I mean, because Kylo Ren at the start of this movie is evil, utterly, you know, it looks like he's utterly beyond redemption. You know, the mask is back, and he, you know, the first thing you see him doing is slaughtering people, very effectively, might I add. But he does an incredible job with that, because he has to make a character that looks utterly unredeemable, possibly redeemable in this film, and I think he did it really well. So, number two, John Boyega. Now, I don't think people would think I'd put him in there, but I think in this film he's pretty good. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot to do, but there is a kind of bantery relationship with him and, I can never get this right, Oscar Isaac's Downer and Poe. There's a fair bit of banter going on there between them, and that was actually quite fun to see. Because, you know, really they haven't spent a lot of time together, these characters, and this obviously I think is about, this one is set a couple of years after the end of at the end of The Last Jedi. So, and something interesting, actually, before I can move on, is the text crawl. Like, if anyone ever remembers the text crawl from The Phantom Menace that seemed to go on for about a week, going on about trade negotiations and blockages, this one has 3 passages. Literally, this, gone in the movie. So I think they were kind of going, let's just get to the fucking point. So, yeah, so John Boyega's performance, I think, was pretty good. I think people might going to pull me apart on that one, but again, a guy with a difficult part, because there was certain aspects of his character, like The Last Jedi and with the thingy, where he seemed to have a bit of force sensitivity, which wasn't really dealt with. He just seemed to be able to feel and sense things, and that was kind of lip service, but it wasn't like he was going to become a Jedi or anything else. So that was kind of like, okay, cool. So number one, and I am slightly biased here, I pretty much liked her since the first film, which is Daisy Ridley. Again, a character struggling with light and dark, because, again, her parentage, when it's revealed, it was like, oh, okay. And it sets up this, which side, and are you, you know, like, I'm trying hard not to give anything away here, but there is kind of a conflict in the character, which is good or bad, you know, light or dark. Which side is she going to go for? Because there's a very famous clip where you see a dark Rey with a double-ended lightsaber, which I was like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. So she did a brilliant job. I mean, and again, her kind of chemistry with Adam Driver and with all the other cast, because she is the central character. She's like the protagonist, if you want to use video game language. She's doing the whole thing. She's glue the whole everything together, and again, she does really well with it. I think she doesn't, you know, she is a pretty good actress, and I think that kind of shows with her work in these films, because she's trying to make Rey believable, even though she can do all this stuff. She's just like, I know, fuck this, and and she's impulsive in this film. She gets angry. She does play those dark and light aspects. And there was a bit actually near the end, where she's given a choice. I'm not going to say who or what gives her the choice, and it was a scene very similar to a scene in Jedi where Palpatine turns around, um, shows her this fight that's going on, and goes, tough, they're all going to die, and literally kill me, and everyone will be saved, like he says to Luke in the end of Return of the Jedi. So I suppose that's a bit spoilery, but I have warned you. But the way she acted that sequence, the way that she was obviously struggling and trying to make the right choice and everything, was just brilliant. And again, with her and Adam Driver, they're very rarely together on screen. I mean, there's like a couple of sequences where they're talking and they're obviously in completely separate. Like they're supposed to be miles, thousands, light years apart. But the intimacy of the two of them talk like they're literally in the same room is done really well. So there's Simon's questions. I hope he watches this and he'll comment down below if he agrees with me or not. He's perfectly allowed. But I definitely feel that, yeah. So I thought it was a good film. I mean, as I said, it doesn't have the story follow through that Star Wars and the prequel trilogy have. But considering its gestation and what they've had to do with it, it's not bad. It's not like epic, splitting awesome. But it's not bad, as I think a lot of people have said with this current trilogy. There were just people out there who were never going to give it a chance because the prequels were hated, because that was a massive letdown for a lot of people. I mean, I was okay with The Phantom Menace, but I wasn't saying it was the best film ever. And then as they went along and they became darker and more obvious, what was happening, even though we had to sit through a lot of bad dialogue from poor Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman having to write the... But that's the way George Lucas wrote them, was this kind of 30s, 40s serial drama stuff. So that's what he was aiming at with the wipes and everything. But I mean, I wouldn't place them... I think it was the original trilogy, slightly tweaked out by these ones, and then the prequels. So that doesn't necessarily mean the prequels are bad. I slightly enjoyed these ones more. I can't think of anything else that you could kind of go. I mean, there were some... I mean, obviously, it was never going to be a perfect film. It was not going to end in a way that every Star Wars fan would go, that was awesome. That is the best thing ever. I'm going to go home now and check off massively about it. But as an experience of all, like I said, I've had the same experience with all three of them, where I went in... Sorry for the interruption there, just had to do something. So basically, overall... I said it's a tough one, because would I recommend you to go see it? I would say if you've seen the previous two, yes. If you don't like it, you've really only lost 2 hours and 20 minutes of your life. You know what I mean? But you've seen the whole thing, and I think as time moves forward, because obviously they've said they're going to be moving away from this structure, which I can see the logic to it. But if it's more kind of, this is the supposed 9-film arc. So from Anakin Skywalker to Rey, we'll call it the Skywalker saga. Let's just do it that. I think maybe, to be honest with you, I think as time goes on, I think in say 5-6 years time, I think these things are going to be reevaluated. I just kind of, not the same way like a John Carpenter's The Thing was, But if you've noticed, the fan reaction to the prequel trilogy was fairly harsh when they were released. Really, really harsh. It was the early days of the internet, so, ooh, fairly difficult. But, and I'll say this as a massive one, as time has gone on, the reaction to them has softened to where you now find people going, oh, they actually weren't that bad, because I think what we need on these films is time and perspective. I think that's really something that we all need to sit and talk about as fans of the overarching thing, And I don't think they're going to be done, they're never going to be as held as high as the original trilogy, because, and to quote a line from Spaced, people who weren't originally there weren't there, so there's no way they can ever understand the impact, but they can still enjoy the films. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how let's say in 5 or 6 years' time, what happens to the opinion on these films. Because it's definitely, I think it's going to be different. I really do feel these films will be looked back on and people will go, oh, maybe I was wrong. I still think The Last Jedi is gonna still be divisive. I think that's always going to be a divisive film, because the reaction to that when the film came out and afterwards was fairly surprising. It was literally like the film was 92 and a bit hours of Rian Johnson wiggling his willy at you in the cinema. The people seem to react to it like, what's he done, And I mean, obviously, the third film is like, whoa, and, I think that's what's happened, is that they looked at the third movie and they were like, I think they were surprised by the reaction to it, and it's a good film. It may not be the best Star Wars film, but it's still a pretty goddamn good film. There are some incredibly memorable sequences. Okay, that bit with Rose and Finn on that gambling planet and all that stuff didn't technically need to be there, but it still was there, and I still thought it didn't have the story, but it was still there. There was, I don't know why it was there, but it was still there. So I think in like 5 to 6 years' time, I think some of these films are going to be reevaluated. I still think there's some stuff in there actually that I was kind of, like there's actually a sequence with a very brief, I'll say, brief sequence of two women kissing in Star Wars, which I was like, oh, okay, that's nice to say. And stuff like that, and there was some kind of weird. I'm actually going to bring this something else. There's a because as you know from the trailers, Lando Calrissian is in the film, and there was this. Sorry. And there was a scene near the end, and I'm not going to say who it was, but there's a character that the trilogies meet, and they were ex-First Order stormtroopers, and the leader, whose name I don't think was ever mentioned, sits next to Lando Calrissian. And he says, hi, who are you? And she says, I think she says something along the lines of, I don't know. He says, where do you come from? And she also says, I don't know. And he says back to her, well, let's see. And I was like, I actually kind of watched the scene and I was like, it felt like it was setting something up. And it sounds daft, I know, but it just felt like it was, as an example, I always say this bit in The Hobbit. The Hobbit movies were the last couple of scenes where Lee Pace's character turns to Orlando Bloom and literally kind of goes, hi, there's this dude, he's called the Strider, maybe check him out. And you just go, and they're just thinking, they're trying to find ways to link stuff. So I don't really know if this is that's what it felt like. It's going to seem daft to say, but that's kind of what it felt like to me. So I had a bit of a delay there, so I'm back to finish off this talk. So while I've been away, I've just actually had a little think. I want to add one addendum to the good performances, kind of an honourable mention. for want of a better word. And that's, I'm gonna say this wrong, but Jonas Suntomo, the guy who took over the job of Chewbacca from Peter Mayhew, who I actually haven't met him. I have met Peter Mayhew, and uh, the acting that he does, considering he's under about 20 foot of fur, is fairly impressive. I just wanted to kind of add that on there. I'm not going to actually say anything about why he's acting as he is, because again, spoilery. But I still think that, you know, overall, I mean, I am going to see it again, and I think I'm definitely going to need, you know, a couple of viewings. I think like I did with Last Jedi. I mean, I've seen each one about 3 times of the originals. Obviously, I've seen the other ones a couple more, but obviously these have only been out. And I said I have watched The Force Awakens a lot. Actually, I do really like that film. Last Jedi I have seen, because that's some of the imagery in that one is just striking. But I think overall, as I said earlier on, 5-6 years, I think we're going to start to look at these and go, you know, maybe, you know, but I am expecting the comments underneath here to be fairly horrific. So, you know, if you don't like what I'm saying, it's my opinion, not the be all and end all. But, you know, let's just hope we can all give it some. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it there. I am gonna most probably gonna do a few streams over the next couple of weeks just to kind of keep going on. I'd like to thank hello to the 7 people who subscribed from the Wales video, so hello to you. I don't know who you are, but thank you very much. And hi to Simon. Thanks for the questions. I'll let you. Once this is up, I'll let you know when it's up, and you can have a view and let me know what you think. So thanks very much, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.